WOVU LP, Cleveland.
This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Great dawn and grand rise in Cleveland, Ohio. Vince Robinson here with another edition of Open Door. I am pleased to have as my guest this morning someone who is no stranger to Cleveland, Ohio. He is the founding director of Powerful Long Ladder. He has an extensive background in theater. He's also moved into film. He's been doing things in film festivals across the country and around the world, always doing great things. And I'm so pleased to have him as a guest today. Please welcome to Open Door, my friend and my brother, Mr. Terrence Spivey.
Pleasure, Vince. It's always a pleasure, talking with you. I love the questions and knowing how you are very culturally and throughout the city. Love it. So it's an honor whenever you invite me on, because I know you're busy as well.
Yes. Well, I'm blessed to be on the receiving end of communication from you on the various projects that you're involved in. And I see that despite all the craziness, the chaos and confusion that's going on in the world, you're still out there doing what you do as an artistic director. As I mentioned before, you also moved into film. You had a very successful film that was at several film festivals this year. But first, let's just talk about Terrence. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm well. Thank you. I'm well. I should be asking you as well, because we all been going through the chaotic moments the past few years, Right. So you've been keeping busy as well, keeping things moving and so yes, I'm well. Okay. I'm well. Art is, I've learned that it's the best medicine. It's the relationship that will never depart from you. So no matter what it is, friends, relatives, what I love, art, it would always be around for me because I invested so much with it. And, so it's been good to me. So I'm well.
Okay. Being in a place of pause as we were for most of the previous year, and then things kind of opened up to a certain extent and people were able to get around. What's been your experience in navigating the so-called new normal that we have right now?
It has been this earlier, being very busy artistically. It has allowed me at the same time to be still a couple of times, because I have been still. I mean, it allowed me to meditate and recollect and rejuvenate and rethink and rebuild and restructure my mind on certain things I need to look at, because what happened during the time all this is going on, you're able to see and learn about other people as well besides yourself, So it allowed me to see who's real and who's not, and that's what allowed me to step back and reevaluate myself about who I am and who these folks are rotating around me.
So in the past few years, since the time that you left Karamu, you've been able to land in a lot of different places. And I know that your theatrical productions have not been limited to the Cleveland area. Back in November, you were part of a production, or actually at the head of a production called Bourbon at the Border at Allegheny College. Could you tell me what that project was all about?
Yeah. Yes. Let me just say before that, Allegheny College, I didn't even know it was located in Medville, Pennsylvania. I always thought it was in Pittsburgh. And just the package of being invited in general to select what piece I wanted to direct. And in addition to that, I was a professor there, a professor director for 2.5 months in residency. They put me up in an apartment and everything. And all that encompassed on how I responded in what type of piece I wanted to do. They embraced it. And of course, it was the first let me just say the first play exclusively with an all-Black cast in the 91-year history of the theater department, the Play Shop Theater Company there at Allegheny College Theater Program. So it was very, very satisfying personally for me, but also artistically. It wasn't really about diversity or nothing like that. It was just about being able to select what I wanted, but I selected it based on what had been going on with George Floyd and the Black Lives Movement, because I thought of the Freedom Summer and how a lot of the young people went out and marched, for the rights. And I thought about Mississippi and Atlanta and the whole suppression of voting. And that allowed me to choose that work, and the staff there allowed me to choose that piece.
Okay. And normally, when you're doing the productions that are in different theaters here in Cleveland, you're working with casts that are primarily adults or sometimes a combination of adults and young folk. But in this particular case,
yes,
you had a student cast, correct?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, Vince, because I did the production. I don't know if you know, we did it at Caramel House. It was with Ensemble Theater. They reached out and collaborated with Caramel for the very first time in 2006-07, and it was a 4-character play. It was the first play that Peter Lawson Jones graced the stage at Caramel in Cleveland. He played a supporting role, and it's a piece about a couple. They were like college students back in the 60s during the Freedom Summer in Mississippi. It's 30 years later. They live in Detroit, and the wife now has an apartment. Her husband is in and out of a mental institution, and their dream is to go to Canada across the Brooklyn, not the Brooklyn, but the Ambassador Bridge, which is a beautiful view in the setting of the play. That's their dream. And what happens is that at the beginning of the play, he just coming out of a mental institute. It's not about him going to Vietnam. It's about him, the haunting and what happened to him during the Freedom Summer 30 years before. And there's a couple that provide all the comic relief, and they're part of that whole embracing of the play as well. But I bring this up because of the cultural, the historical, the maturity of the piece, maturity of the actors that I worked with the adults. And the students, I must say, I was concerned at the very beginning, Vince. They really handle it well. I didn't treat them as though they were adults. I told them to take their time, do not try to invest as much because they were young, because there's some monologues, particularly for the young, for the white rose. A freshman played that part at the school. And she, as people would say in the business, she ripped the character apart to the point where she was so grounded. I think based on me also during the process of rehearsal, I had them looking at documentaries. One of them, I think was for PBS, was part 1, 2 about the Freedom Summer. I'm sure you may have seen that. And it's the part when they showed how during the time how a lot of whites had stayed at the Black families' houses there. And that was really an eye-opener for them. And them watching that famous speech with Fannie Lou Hamer, and the more they did more research, and the more they watched documentaries, and plus Allegheny College being a liberal arts school, and how they embraced and how they got a chance to be part of other outlets on campus that happened to be good time, and that dealt with Black Lives Matter, and also dealt with civil rights. They got more embraced in the importance of the play. And I was really, I felt like a father, with my kids up there. But I'm like, they were fantastic, and then most of them weren't theater majors, Vince, at all. But they had the intensity to immerse. One young man who played the lead. It was his first time. Yet he was a junior. He came in, he got the part like that. Now the professors are talking to him to get him to continue his study in theater, and they're looking for summer programs for him. Beyond Allegheny, like in New York, because he's a very talented young man. But all of them were great. All of them were fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
So it really satisfied them. Really satisfied them artistically and historically and personally too.
Yeah. I'm curious, based on what you just shared, what the impact of an experience like that is in giving young people an understanding of the struggle that we went through and our foreparents went through, because many of them, they can't relate to the dogs being sick and the fire hoses and all of that. What did it mean to them to grasp this new understanding?
It's so much involved with this. With that's a load in there, and it's good. They not even just of not experiencing that, but I had them to also. It was one of the first times I had a cast say, "Go talk to your parents." Puts an adult play, Go talk to your parents and your grandparents, which a lot of them did. The young lady based her character off of her aunt. She said she reminds me of my aunt. So they had a lot of discussion with their parents. There was some mature dialogue and words that it wasn't even a dialogue. The dialogue, it wasn't just the history. Certain words like the opening scene when he walks in coming from the mental institute and sees his wife, Charlie sees Rose, and he says, "Daddy's home, daddy's home," And every time we rehearsed that the first 2 weeks, the young lady would giggle. I'm like, "Why are you laughing?" Because she didn't know what that meant. Daddy's home, daddy's home. And she would always laugh. I said, "Look, I'm not the one to give you all this stuff. Your parents have to be a dramaturg, for the play." And so they would go and ask the parents about it. And they started getting better understanding and about the history. And when they're making references to Cheney, the other two gentlemen that was killed in Mississippi, because it's referenced a lot about that in the play too. So they had actual articles to look at, but their parents, their family and their family's friends, their generational families really helped them out a lot. But I must say also, it's also the challenge was the maturity of movement, because there were times when a young lady would just grab the phone. We had to have a wall phone. There was no cell phone. So she would grab it real fast. And, I say, "You're looking too young." So I had to have the actors slow their dialogue delivery and to slow their movement down, to have more gravitas, The cultural thing about it was the fact, the cultural shock was the fact that there's a stereo system that's used in the play. So we put a stereo on the stage and the young lady has to turn it on. She didn't even know how to do it because they don't have stereo. It was so many cultural things on the stage. Like, well, how do you do this? How do you turn this on? Or how do you do this? And what is this? But for me, it was so refreshing. It was so refreshing to see this, a new discovery. It's like I was in another world. Like I was zapped into another world, and young folks are being adults, and they're trying to catch up to what we dealt with back in the day. So
it sounds like
it was hilarious.
Quite an experience. I kind of wish I would have been there to witness it for myself, but perhaps at some point in time, these things should be captured. You're listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU. I'm Vince Robinson. My guest is Terrence Spivey, the founding director of Powerful Long Ladder, and he is a giant in the world of theater, not only here in Cleveland, but across the country. We'll be back with more Open Door right after this.
Wow, I wish there was a way I could listen to WOVU when I wasn't in the city.
But there is.
Really?
Yes. You can go to WOVU.org. Go to our webpage. It's got everything on all the shows.
Eric Nolan is in the building.
This is Rachel Hill, the host of Her in the Huddle.
This is Delvis Valentine.
On listen.
Yo, what it do is your girl DJ Coco Z.
Hey, I am Talitha Kube from Let's Talk About It. Hi, this is DJ Black Unicorn.
WOVU.org. Tap the app. Listen live.
This is WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson, and my guest is the illustrious, the inimitable Terrence Spivey. He's got the fashionable hat on today. One of these days, I might venture out there and get one for myself because, you know, we got to cover the bald spots when we get to this age in life. I know, Terrence,
I used to have my. Well, it's so funny to have my locks. So people don't realize though, before I had my locks, I mean, so I cut my locks here. It's like things. It's like people say, "You dyed your hair." I said, "No, my locks. I cut off my locks. My hair is still black up here." You know. So people don't realize when I was in New York, I used to wear hats a lot. I used to even wear my cowboy hat, and I have my cowboy hat now. You know, I'm back to my cowboy hats now. So I got my cowboy hat. I can't wait to wear it soon. So, because I'm from a Texas boy, so right. I have a black. But let me just go back to I wish I could have recorded those moments because I was like, I'm thinking I have to deal with them in the historical factor of things happened before they were born, but also dealing with some maturity levels and some, you know, when they were young, and I have to get them to, as though they are 40 years old. That's a moment in the play. And I talked about it during talkback events when during rehearsals, there's a scene where the young lady, Rose, is talking to her good friend, her next door neighbor, and her good friend comes in to do like a testing her on makeup and lotions and all that. So during rehearsals, they're doing testing, and the young lady who played the lead, she didn't have nothing to wipe her hands with. So stage manager said, "Okay, well, you have to find something." She says, It's okay. I'll find." She just wiped her hands on her pants. And I was thinking back in the day when Joyce Meadows played the part, when I directed it here in Cleveland, how she said, "Okay, I'll find some napkins. I'll find some Kleenex." So I'm looking at the difference when she said, "I think I'll get," and this young lady was willing to just wipe her hands. It's that level of, you know, youth. Or I wipe my hands on my my pants. I'm like, no, you wouldn't do that. You're 40 years old. It was so many moments that was so refreshing and laughable at the actors. I felt it was like a poetic justice. How they get on us, how we don't have to know how to use cell phones and all this stuff. And here she is trying to turn on the stereo system. You know, I told the stage manager, let her, don't do it. Let's watch her. And she was there struggling, trying to turn the stereo on. So it was hilarious. I loved it though. I loved it.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention who wrote the play. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yes, Pearl Cleage, one of the greatest writers in general, because she's a novelist as well. And she's also a feminist, and she Black Power, you know, movement type from Atlanta. And she also wrote a piece called Flying West, and Bourbon Blues from Alabama Sky. She wrote that as well. So those, you can actually get those three pieces, and I think in a collection. So, you know, a Flying West, Blues from Alabama Sky, and Bourbon at the Border. Her work is so lyrical, particularly this one here. It reminded me, she's the only one I look at that said, wow, this piece here is like a female August Wilson wrote it. So it's so lyrical and so strong. It's fascinating, but it's tragic at the same time because it deals with trauma and it deals with Black trauma. And that was one in showing that you don't have to be from military you can be at the war at home. and still have those problems. So that was one of the main reasons that I really wanted to put the piece up.
You know, Terrence, I've noticed in your work, there's a consistent theme that involves addressing the inequities in our society and the Black experience. I mean, you've been dedicated to portraying what it's like for us as African Americans in this country to navigate all the snares and the toils and the things that we encounter. What motivates you to bring those things to life and to bring them to the stage?
Me, from where I'm from, the South, me seeing darkness and not just light as a kid from the South, you know, like when I did the piece based on the gentleman who was dragged, you know, and back in 1933, that always stayed in my mind when my great grandmother's a kid, when I was a kid, you know, everything I heard at the juke joint she owned everything was about darkness. I didn't look at the term darkness then, but it was always something that happened. You know, there was some happiness too, because my great grandmother really, you know, embraced me and loved me, but I also had heard a lot about darkness. I mean, there was never a resolution or not only that, I noticed a lot of us, every time something that's dark pops up, we don't want to discuss it or talk about it. You know, we don't want to walk in there because, sometimes you have to go through the darkness to find the light most of the time, So I always believe that art allows us to cover it without getting into any domestic violence or killing each other, or shooting each other in the house. What better way to lay those platforms of all these taboos on stage than using art? And you can have post discussions afterwards. There's more constructive criticism and constructive arguments, and folks can walk away with a better understanding. It's easy to do something happy, and we all want to be happy, but we want to also tackle the problems, because if there's a problem with your arm, you don't really just stay sore, you go to the doctor. You're going to dig into it and microscope and see what, put it on the microscope and see what happens. And that's what we need to do with problems in our society. Let art be the microscope. Whether we're able to find what it is or not, at least we're dissecting it. We're at least dissecting it, and we can come away with something we didn't have before, So I love, I think it's important to tackle those, it's interesting you brought that up because many other folks have, and I do it unconscious. I just do it because I feel that it's something that's needed, and I tread where others don't tread. And I was a leader here in the city, in one of the big theaters. I did a piece, Jean Genet's, the famous French absurdist playwright. I did his play, The Blacks, a Clown Show at Caramel. And that piece is about a Black troupe back in 1960, a Black troupe who tours around reenacting the rape of a white woman. And it was a classic piece off Broadway. It was the longest running straight play in theater history, and it propelled a lot of actors' careers, from James Earl Jones, Lou Gossett, Robert Hooks, Godfrey Cambridge, Roscoe Lee Brown, Cicely Tyson, Maya Angelou, Helen Martin. All those people, William Marshall, they were all in that play. It ran so long, Vince, to the point where they had to have 2 or 3 other companies because others took off, their career took off. And it was running during the time of the Civil Rights Movement. And in the backstage, it showed pictures and albums and archivals that Martin Luther King and his wife was there behind the backstage with Robert Hooks. They came to see the play. It was a very dense, daring work. But it's not just about the reenactment of a white woman. It's about culture and language and our sophistication about ourselves. And it's also about playing other roles. That's not really about you. Daring work. But when I put it up, I was set to put it up in the season. A leading director, leading artist director called me up. He said, "Terrence." I said, "Yes." He said, "You putting up the Blacks a Clown Show?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Good luck, brother. Good luck." Yes, he said. It was so funny. I knew I would get that kind of response, but it was also a praise. I'm like, wow, I appreciate what you're doing, because and one of them said, you're doing some things sometimes that we wouldn't dare do and some of your own wouldn't dare do. I said, it's important to do it. Like I said earlier, we have to do it. So, I mean, that's just the been part of where, where I, how I look at art. I've done some comedies too. I mean, but I learn more though, as they say, you learn more through the struggle, So in reality, I find it that way through art, struggle within the arts, art that deals with struggle. I learn from that as well. And the actors learn from that as well, So that's just been my journey, and I love it.
Well, I think too, it's important for us to control the narrative. And when you're at the helm of a play like that, then you're determining how the story is being told and what story is being told. Could you talk a bit? We just have just a few moments before we go to break, but could you just talk about the importance of being able to shape the narrative?
That's a good, oh my God, that's another topic to be discussed for a whole hour there. But yes, that allows, like you say, for us to include the narrative, for us to have to be able to know how the nuances would go, in our culture, because our nuances, Denzel made a good point a while back when he was interviewed about Fences, the movie Fences. And he said that, what was his statement? He said, Spielberg could have easily done Goodfellas. Scorsese could have easily done Schindler's List. But it's not just about diversity or it's about culture. He said, but he made a good point. He said, we know what it smells like when that hot comb hits your hair and it's burning. We know that smell. So it's about culture, specific culture. You still want to make it universal, even though we embrace the narrative, whatever it is. But we would know, we wouldn't have a Leave It to Beaver scene if my mother saw me doing this. And okay, dear, we know that, no, she's going to get upset. I say that, Vince, because I worked on a play. I'll go nameless about it, and I had some actors really going at it. And the director, the artistic director, put me to the side. It happened twice. And they said, I don't think they will come off that way. What they were asking me to do is more of a Leave It to Beaver aura, and they just sit around the table and have a better understanding. I'm like, that is not how we as people of color respond. So each time with those two different plays, guess what? A lot of audience members came out. It's, oh my God, that reminds me. I'm talking about Black artists. That remind me so much of my mother, of my father, of my son. Now, if I had them doing this little Leave It to Beaver, like, oh, dear, let's sit down and discuss this, they would have walked out and said, that is not the way it goes. So this, the nuances and the culturally specific. And I can see that's why August Wilson was so concerned about having an understanding. I'm not against, directors of other races directing our works, but having an understanding about it, the culture, meeting with people, research, the same way I did with Anne Frank. They brought me in to direct the Diary of Anne Frank in Weathervane. I did a lot of research, and I sit down and talk with the actors. I didn't just get up there and say, okay, this. Me have my own little appropriation, I wanted to make sure that I was getting it right, and that's why I respect people like Norman Jewison, who directed Heat of the Night and A Soldier's Play, because he did a lot of that. He said, I just direct, I let them sing the gospel. I just sit back and let them do their thing. Okay. He didn't get in the way of the cultural specifics.
Right. All right. Fascinating conversation. We're going to get right back to it after we take this break. You're listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Bell Car Community Radio Station. I'm Vince Robinson with Artistic Director and Founding Director of Powerful Long Ladder, Terrence Spivey. We'll be right back.
Since 1997, St. Luke's Foundation has awarded millions of dollars each year to positive, impactful organizations that serve you and your community. And now it's time to put the money where your mouth is. So we're introducing Lift Every Voice, a platform created to hear directly from you. We want to know what's important to you and what's important for your community, so St. Luke's Foundation can put all these millions in all the right places. And sharing your voice is easy to do. Go to lev216.org and sign up for the Lift Every Voice email and text updates. It's completely anonymous and totally free. And your voice will impact where, why, and how St. Luke's Foundation spreads that monetary love. Head over to lev216.org and sign up now to help lift every voice in our community. This message is brought to you by St. Luke's Foundation and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. I am privileged to have on the air with me this morning Mr. Terrence Spivey, founding director of Powerful Long Ladder. We've been talking about a stage production that was staged at Allegheny College and a few other things. I want to move on to this film that came out last year and hit all of the film festivals and got all this acclaim. Terrence, tell us about that project and how it transpired for you.
Yes, it's the piece about a gentleman, resurrection of the last black man in 0846. I said earlier, I mentioned about my great grandmother. We talked about this. She always talked about this man that was dragged across the tracks, and the piece has really. It's still going to make it some rounds. I just had to put a hold because I've been busy, working on this project in Alabama. But it's about this man who was dragged and burned. He's the last black man that was dragged and burned to a stake in Texas. It was 1933. And I wasn't expecting to hit any festivals. I did it during the shutdown, but I need to stay busy. I didn't want to do any readings. A lot of theaters and a lot of people I know were doing a lot of readings. I just couldn't, my feeling of what was going on with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and everything else, the politics, the pandemic. I needed the combustion I felt was going to go beyond those squares of the Zoom that everybody was using. So I need to break out of that. I didn't want to do any of that. I love what they were doing, but I need to go beyond that to keep sanity, So I just got together with some actors here, and we used the setting of a Shore Culture Center, and we put the piece together. We used a photographer, Jennifer Hearn, fantastic photographer in Euclid. She was the one. She came aboard and said, "Terrence, let's do this." I don't know how to do editing, moving pictures. I'm good at still shots. And the idea, we started using the still shots. He said, "Terrence, you remember that French film called La Jetée? It's a 20-minute film. It only has one movement." I said, yeah, let's do something. I said, let's go for it. So we used still shots to tell the story. But the catch was, that's a 1-minute film. We went further, said we got an 8-minute and 46-second film. We're gonna have 2 movements in there. So we got it. So we use a Mahalia Jackson song, "The Upper Room," to help underscore, and some black and white. And we didn't have much on the gentleman, so we ended up using other historical moments that happened with other people's hung and from bridges, trees. And we used those to help tell the story until we got to the contemporary day and the black and white turned into color. When it gets to Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the men on the knee, the gentleman's knee on George Floyd's neck, it got to that, and that's in the upper room. It was very powerful. And every time I watch it, it still gave me tears. Regina Taylor, who I became good friends with, a Golden Globe winner of I'll Fly Away, who's done many films. She's the writer of the musical Crowns. I'm going to start raising funds like now, but I got so busy with another project that came my way, and so I'm looking to do that at some point, another year or two.
Well, it's a good thing to have so many things in the works that you can't make your mind up which one to do. There are some that can't find anything to do.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So I've been receiving communication about your involvement in the Spirit of Our Ancestors Festival. I guess it's going to take place down in Alabama in the month of February, and it's connected with the Clotilda Descendants Association. Can you tell us about what that project is all about?
My God. Okay. That's a piece that I found out about that 6 years ago. Even just to tell the story, the Africa Town, the setting. A gentleman named Greg Cyprian, he happened to come into town to Cleveland with Sherry Tolliver, who we both know, friends of his, invited him and another friend of his, Hubert Brandon. Hubert at the time was living in Mobile, Alabama. Him and Greg Cyprian were business partners. They both came to see God's Trombones and with Sherry. And during intermission, he said, "Man, I got to talk with you," like that. So we met the following day before he left that Monday. He came that Saturday to see the show. He said, "Look, man, we need some theater in Mobile. There's no black theater. There's nothing going on." So fast forward, he got me there to Mobile for like a weekend to see it. He drove me around. He said, "I'm going to show you Africa Town." I did not know about Africa Town. I heard of Clotilda, like the Henrietta, Amistad. I knew about the ship, but I didn't know the extension of the history of it. And he said, "This is Africa Town. This is a cemetery where all the ancestors who was on the Clotilda, the last slave ship that came through Mobile, came to the States, United States, kidnapped illegally, because I think they prohibited, 1807, 1808, they prohibited, ships from importing Africans to the States. So this man decided, Timothy Mayer from Mobile decided, I'm going to make a bet. I could smuggle them in. This was 1860. He smuggled them in, brought them into Mobile, put on a steamboat to glide them in quietly, got them off the ship, and they burned the ship. They thought they burned it because it was on water, so it sunk down into the water. The ancestors, the Africans, the enslaved Africans, they ended up being bought, plantation, from 1860. And in 1865, during the 1865 of freedom, they said, we want to go back because their minds wasn't completely broken yet. They still had their leadership. Some of them had gone through that rites of passage. So the leadership mindset was still in their minds. The gardening, all the cultural things are still in their head. And they said, no, you go stay here. So they had raised enough money and decided to build their own Black community. They said, we can't go back to Africa. We're going to create our own Africa here in Mobile, Alabama, Africa Town. They created their own church. They found their own church, and they found their own school, Mobile County Training School in 1880, which that's where the play called An Ocean in My Bones, which I created. They commissioned me, the Clotilda Descendants Association. They commissioned me like a couple of months back about directing this piece. And it's going to be presented at that school where the ancestors had built it for them in 1880. Greg Cyprian, fast forward, last December, 2020, he called me and said, look, I want to get you here now because we can get some money, come build a theater. Let's do some theater. And then after that, we can work on this thing with the Clotilda and possibly with the Descendants. This is why I met the Descendants. He got some money. Months passed. I didn't hear from him. And I said, okay, what's going on with Greg? I got in touch with his friend Hubert. And Hubert said, Terrence, you don't realize he's stuck with COVID. Now, Greg Cyprian is 6'10". He's known in Mobile. He's known for putting up the jazz festivals. He's with the Cultural Arts Affairs at the time. And everybody knows him. He's 6'10". I found out he had got COVID. Then later on, found out he was, decapitated, both legs cut off. I'm sorry, not decapitated, amputated. Double amputation, both legs, because of he was diabetic. So while keeping in touch with him, I got a call, actually a Facebook message from someone I wasn't friendly with. I wasn't friend with on Facebook, but I noticed they were friends with Greg Cyprian from Mobile. So who is this? And it was one of the descendants, Jocelyn Davis, reached out to me and said, hello, Terrence Spivey, Clotilda Descendants Association. My ancestors were on Clotilda. And they'd be like, you give me all the story. I said, whoa, I heard this before. Greg told me this about 6 years ago. So they reached out. That was last March. We have been in the process and what we were going to do. And it's built up to now. So they committed this piece in my bones. And during the time, it's been all these discoveries, even before they got in touch. In 2019, National Geographic has some divers that go into the water and they found parts of the ship, all these different, like bolts and wood, all these artifacts. And that caused them to start looking into it more. So every time there's always something every day leading up to, even when they got in touch with me a year ago, there was always something in the news about the fascination about could this ship still be intact? So a couple of days ago, they found out that it's actually still the hull of it, the part where they kept the slaves or the enslaves, 6 feet high area down in the hull, 110. Well, by the time it got to Mobile, it was 32 of them because they went to other ports and sold some of them off before they got to Mobile. It's stuck down there. And so it's been, the New York Times did something. New York Times did an article, that documentary coming out called Descendant, where all the descendants, they have been interviewed, who got in touch with me, is going to Science next month. And the play is going up in February. So me artistically in the middle of this work, this artistic and historical whirlpool about about this ship and about the ancestors and about their history and it's been very fascinating for me. Then I must say that since over the years I've been in the business, even at Caramel, the oldest black theater in the country, when I was artistic director, to me now founding, a director for Powerful Long Ladder, in my journey in New York, all of it, I love all that. It's a build up to one of the most fascinating moments for me right now.
Yes.
I'm about to cut to tears.
Yeah,
I'm
Terrence,
sorry.
I have to commend you for all of this work that you've done and for this trajectory. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about this fantastic project that you've embarked upon, because I really see how important it is for us to know what those who came before us went through and how they were able to build something out of nothing. That is that's a magnificent story. We're going to talk about it a bit more when we come back. You're listening to Open Door 95.9 FM WOVU. Back after this.
Since 1997, St. Luke's Foundation has awarded millions of dollars each year to positive, impactful organizations that serve you and your community. And now it's time to put the money where your mouth is. So we're introducing Lift Every Voice, a platform created to hear directly from you. We want to know what's important to you and what's important for your community, so St. Luke's Foundation can put all these millions in all the right places. And sharing your voice is easy. easy to do. Go to lev216.org and sign up for the Lift Every Voice email and text updates. It's completely anonymous and totally free, and your voice will impact where, why, and how St. Luke's Foundation spreads that monetary love. Head over to lev216.org and sign up now to help lift every voice in our community. This message is brought to you by St. Luke's Foundation and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Back on Open Door with Vince Robinson and my guest, Mr. Terrence Spivey, founding director of Powerful Long Ladder. And as he mentioned a few moments ago, a former artistic director at Karamu Theater. He is embarking upon a work that will debut in the month of February, ironically, perhaps not ironically, during Black History Month in Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, if I'm correct. And you mentioned just a few days ago, they found the hull of this ship called the Clotilda, and it has a history that needs to be told, and you are in a position to tell that history. So talk to us about what this play is going to look like. Yeah. What are you going to convey with this particular project?
Okay, this has been another, there's so many levels of the journey. I between when I was at Allegheny during the Thanksgiving break, they put me there for like a week. I went there to interview the descendants, and I got a chance to go back and reconnect with the water and reconnect with the Africa town and talk to the people, the tourists. Got a chance to visit twice since about the past 3 months. I went to see Greg Cyprian, who's like really a big fixture and, a big connection to what's going on. And on top of that, I must say that the Imani Community Theater, because I mentioned earlier, he was wanting me 6 years ago to let's say just do theater here. During the time when I'm working on this piece with the descendants, he ended up founding the theater company, Imani Community Theater in Mobile. So it is the first Black theater company in Mobile's history, the city of Mobile. There's no Black theater. I have become, because I things have changed for those 5-6 years. I can say but I can't be part of a theater company. But the situation with Greg that he's in now, and knowing what he would have done if he's up on his feet, I've kind of like put myself in between Cleveland and Mobile now. So I'm the artistic associate where I'll be going back and forth to get that theater company going, because Imani is also in the future going to be part of the bigger picture for the piece that I'm doing now about the Clotilda. Right now, it'll be a 45-minute highlight with the Clotilda, the Senate Association. And what it's going to pertain is it's going to be more unconventional than a normal, regular, well-made play. So it's going to be something that'll be interesting to see how these young actors who never had training or never seen a play or seen a play, but not the way I'm taking this, in order to bring everything in 45 minutes with a cliffhanger that's going to lead to a full-length production in 2024. So it's basically going to start off, from how they got captured to on the ship, and it's going to be a collection of monologues. The ancestors going to come back. 2019 is the discovery of the ship is what evoked the ancestors to come back, the spirits of the ancestors. They come back to life, and they have a collection of monologues about who they are and what they're hoping to do. The catch is, there's a key is this, Vince, is that when they talk and have dialogue amongst each other or breaking the fourth wall with the audience, they're not saying that, I died in 1930, I died in they like now their past is in existence of the present. So they don't talk about, they talk as though that they're still here. And I purposely did it that way. Now, the thing is, though, one of them that's more famous is Cudjoe Lewis, who you know, from Barracoon, Zora Neale Hurston's book. He was the last male slave survivor. And the book was written in 1927 by Zora. That's what Zora Neale Hurston's career took off. And she interviewed him, but not all the other descendants. So there are other books that talks about all the descendants, all the other ancestors. There's one called Dreams of Africa in Alabama. You know, there's Dreams of Africa. I don't know how it looks here. It's probably backwards. I don't know, reverse it. But, and of course, there's the Barracoon and the slave ship Clotilda by Natalie Robertson, who was one of the keynotes for one of their events, Clotilda Descendants Association. So, researching books the past few months, listening to the descendants, and visualizing and hearing some words that I can't find that they have quoted, some of the ancestors. The descendants, I told some of them, they said some of our ancestors don't have any dialogue like Cudjoe. Cudjoe dialogue is in Barracoon. And it's broken dialogue too, which ended up being controversial because they didn't publish it till later because they wanted Zora Neale to make sure she made it more English standard for their own people to read. She said, I refuse to. I want to keep it the way he spoke. I want people to see how he spoke, and very poetic, even though it's broken language. And it's poetic, but it's not that many other ancestors who has expansive dialogue like his in books. Some of them I found quotes, but I told the descendants, Vince, I said, look, she said, how are we going to do how are you going to find dialogue for them? I said, based on what you're telling me, what your ancestors told me, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, what they told down the line, some of that is going to be coming out of your ancestors' mouths. And one of the descendants almost went into tears when I told her that. I said, it's not a way of trying to cut corners. That's that thing called blood memory. That's that blood memory there. So it's some wordings coming from you that was so poetic that's going to come out of your ancestors' mouths too. So the journey, it has been so fascinating, because it hits home, and it also gives a chance to show their other sides of this. Or why is everything so steeped in slavery? Cliche talk, It's more than that, because these people, their ancestors came here. They cultivated land. Some of them got land in advance. Some did their wills, gardening. One Jabba Shade. He was on the ship too in his 20s. He was known for medicines and all that. They brought all that from West Africa, all that culture in the discipline with their kids. That's why they built that school to carry that same African discipline to America. And I'm just amazed. I told the descendants, I said, I'm really amazed because some of us can't even identify our ancestors. We know can't identify, all can. I mean, y'all got names and books, and every time something comes up, like the New York Times a couple of days ago, they reach out to the descendants automatically. What do you think about this? How do you feel? They're constantly in the papers. And they're getting a lot of play. They'll end up getting even more play with this play here. I'm set to leave, Vince, January 12th, right? They already have me set for 2 local TV shows Thursday the 13th. One at 9 a.m. I think one lot 9 a.m. on Fox there in Mobile. And I was set to be on another one at 4 o'clock. So I'm just landing. I said, y'all might as well just parachute me down on the rooftop of the station. So, but it's really fascinating, not just for me individually, because I think about others who do this, about who are making movement, Baraka and Ed Bullens and folks who made noise, people like August Wilson. It's like this is what they're talking about. Like when you mentioned about the things I tackle, I think about August, what he was touching, of blood memory, the ancestral was going the theme through all of his plays. And I look at Ed Bullens and Baraka and Lorraine Hansberry, Pearl, those collection of all those works sums up to all this here, because there's references all the time in their plays about our ancestors, So I feel blessed and fortunate. I'm just a custodian of the art, everybody else, and they feel blessed and I feel prepared too. I mean, this was just meant for me, for this to come to me, and I'm prepared for it. I'm prepared for it.
Well, it is a major thing to go to a place that does not have a theatrical institution and to create one like that. I mean, I'm speechless just thinking about that and just thinking about the fact that, and asking the question, why isn't that there? And if it's not there, how many other places don't have that? And it gets back to the whole idea that we have to be in a position to tell our stories. Now you're bringing to life this idea that Africans who came over here with literally nothing were able to create something for themselves and to succeed in life. And there are so many other stories just like that one that have not been told, that have been swept under the rug. I mean, how many cities are there in America that are underwater? Exactly. They created a lake over them, or they buried them, or they changed the name to erase the history, while we have this conversation about critical race theory being banned in educational institutions. I mean, the work that we have to do as artists could not be any more important than it is right now. So I really, really want to tip my hat to you, even though it's not on, but I really want to tip my hat to you for making that bold move that you made. We just have a few moments left, and I didn't want to miss an opportunity to talk to you about what's happening with the Tamir Rice Afrocentric Art Center. I know you're still connected with that. Anything you want to mention about that before we conclude the show?
It's still in the works. I've been in between while I was it was a time, I think, when I was in Alabama, and when I've been in school on campus, I would get Sharon Madison, the one who runs the Madison Incorporated, Robert Madison's. She's the one that's helping Samaria Rice out with the architectural. So we've been having Zoom meetings, and Samaria's still looking to open at some point. We don't know when, but she's just gradually taking her time, because she's still doing her thing. I'm still doing what I'm doing, and it's looking to go up at some point. I look forward, because the program I created to the Tamir Reach program is going to go in there once it opens. And I look forward to that. But she's been very supportive. We were still supportive of each other. She came to see, by the way, she drove to see Bourbon at the Border. Okay. And she met the cast. They took pictures with her. And of course, Peter Lawson Jones, by the way, too. They both participated in my Black Theater History class. I had her on Zoom. We talked about how art went into protests and went into social justice. She was on there to talk about the Tamir Rice play. And Peter came and talked to the cast about how to make it in the business, So, but yeah, it's still going to go up. But right now, I'm just staying busy and looking forward to keeping myself sharp in terms of doing the play, and also I'm going to be doing workshops. And while I'm there for the month, I'm going to be doing workshops in Mobile under the Imani Community Theater with Greg Cyprian. And we also just started working on a contract with a HBCU college there. Okay. So it's a lot.
All right. Well, brother, you like Tom Joyner used to be. He was the hardest working brother in radio. You the hardest working brother in the theater business, brother. Thank you so much.
But when you love it,
We gotta get the show because we're out of time. But I promise you, I'm gonna have you back.
Okay, that's all right.
We're gonna jump right back into it.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, brother. And thanks for listening.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.